We have one more speaker in this particular group, and that's Mr. Charles Reith from Reith Energy. And he's going to give us an overview of sustainable businesses and the exciting path forward. So let's give Charles a warm welcome.
Okay, thank you. Last talk before lunch, so let's go. Well, I'm very excited here to spend some time exploring for you how to raise businesses locally to a still higher level of performance than what we're seeing so far, and to get those businesses the proper recognition, the incentive, the information, and the recognition and patronage that will reward them for the time it takes to learn about and elevate one's environmental performance. So I'm going to start by shouting out to the terrific success of the Green Business Partnership. Then I'll address what remains to be done. I think there's still room at the top for greener businesses. And then how to leverage the considerable strengths in this community toward creating a system that will recognize these. So I don't know if Randy's here. I had an eye out for him, but Randy Penn has led the Green Business Partnership for some time, and it has been a fabulous program, tirelessly working to engage dozens of members into that community. It's an outstanding education tool, just spending time on the questionnaires that you have to evaluate your performance, and then Randy has one-on-ones with many people to enhance that education. There's also plenty of motivational examples. He posts on the web some success stories like investments and return on investments at Memorial Hospital. But I think it's fair to say, relative to the expectations that we all have, membership in the GBP and the environmental performance that we say is really just the first step. As I said, there's room to take it higher, and that's what I've been thinking hard about since I arrived a year ago, and welcome the chance to share some thoughts now. One of the concerns with the Green Business Partnership that I think would be foremost in addressing is to call out the businesses that achieve a higher level of performance with a greater recognition, a greater level of recognition than what we see here with the green map. There are green businesses here for this community, but so are environmental amenities like our parks and facilities like Marie Selby. So I think one of the first motivations is if we had initially a smaller, more select group of green businesses, and then these would stand out on the green map, and we environmentalists would patronize them and celebrate them. I use a working title right now, Sustainability Vanguard Enterprise. That's a brand ultimately that should be adopted by the originators of this program. But on a map like this, I would envision logos of those businesses, and now we would know the ones that have taken the extra efforts, and I'm going to talk about that roadmap, to go really green, deeper shade of green. Okay, so I think we would establish a much higher bar of environmental performance for these guys. I'm a member of the Renewable Energy Task Force. We'll hear more about them this afternoon. I think that they need to make genuine commitments, at least in laying out groundwork relative to renewable energy, and I'll talk about the others, many of the other parameters here. You can't just be green in one way, you have to be comprehensively committed to environmental improvement. So a higher bar, some kind of a performance standard that would have to be achieved by everybody, and then an internal third-party verification program so that if one company works really hard to achieve all these different environmental performance levels and brands themselves in this elite group, they know that others have had to make the same commitment. And I would see this as being a fee-based program. This is something where companies would engage, commit the resources to it, and potentially do some pooled marketing. I could imagine if the top 10 green businesses had a display ad in the paper on Sunday saying, we are the ones who have taken the time to learn about what the environmental objectives are in this community, what the sustainability challenges and missions are of the greater Sarasota region, and we hope you will patronize not just us, but all the businesses that you see on this list. And then I would find it incumbent on the environmental communities to really shout out to these businesses. The Audubon, the Climate Leadership, all these guys have very active social networks. Let's get our memberships to know these are the ones who are investing their time and energy to learn and implement programs for continuous environmental improvement. So, one of the confounding factors to businesses is all of these certifications. I was an expert in ISO 14000. We've heard a lot about LEED today. Those are pretty sweeping certifications. Well, they're widely recognized certifications, don't necessarily pertain to every line of business. So then we have all these sector certifications, like for the florist industry and wood and restaurants and so forth. And then some cities in Sarasota, in Florida, have community-based certifications, not unlike our Green Business Partnership, and those are led by government. But I would propose that we would replace all of these with a program, a certification, a recognition that addresses the specific challenges that are represented in this room right here. I've talked about renewable energy, climate stewardship. Every business should understand what the challenges are behind water stewardship, red tide, habitat preservation, smart growth and transportation. Every business should be mindful of their impacts on transportation and try to reduce it. So imagine that every business was required to develop a continuous improvement plan relative to each of these parameters and would then get recognition. I think it would start with the Green Business Partnership. I think, in fact, it will elevate participation in that. But they would get recognition as a sustainability vanguard enterprise. And those are the ones we want to know who they are and we would patronize. Now, how are we going to get here? This is going to be a process where we would bring the environmentalists, and I've just listed a few examples, the leaders of the advocacy groups, and those businesses that are interested, and we just heard for a couple, into some facilitated sessions. And I'm learning about facilitation. I know we have an expert in appreciative inquiry here. These would be a facilitated workshop to originate from within our community. There's something quite unique about this, which is the organic generation of our own standard of performance specific to our community. Through these facilitated meetings, we would understand how are we going to engage new businesses and what will this performance standard be. We need an operating agreement that would refer to whatever third-party verification would be established in there, or self-policing. Identify a brand. Quite beyond just my efforts here, I'm sure we would hire a marketing representative in making sure that that patronage by the environmental community is one, and then thinking in terms of its long-term economic sustainability. Wrapping up, I'm already working on engaging stakeholders. This is not the first that you've heard of this from me, many of you, although you can see I'm moving forward with each conversation. Raising money is going to be very important for this. The biggest incentive is that the first round of promotion, social media, and advertising may need to be externally funded with a grant or a series of grants to incentivize participation. Ultimately, this organization needs to be self-sustaining, but startup funding is very important. I'm working closely with the academic community. The University of South Florida, Sarasota, Manatee campus is interested in it. We've even been talking a little bit in the business school about an institute or center for sustainable enterprise. How exciting would that be? Not only to launch this program, provide some of the education, but to research its success and put it out there in the scholarly literature. And in fact, I will yield my minute to the questions and suggestions session because that is what comes next. So thank you very much.